Modern banking had been in existence in India since 1770, and by the 1920s, a number of Indian and foreign banks were operating here. But there was no agency to train banking professionals in India. If someone wanted to gain professional knowledge, he or she had to look towards the Chartered Institute of Bankers, London. Leading bankers of the day like Sir R.P. Masani and Sir Sorabji Pochkhanwala realized that the Indian economy would never prosper without locally trained bankers. They planned to set up a similar institute in India. Sir Basil Blackett, Finance Minister in the then Viceroy's Council, set the ball rolling in that direction by writing to Sir Norcott Warren, who headed the then biggest Indian bank, the Imperial Bank. A subcommittee was appointed. It came up with a draft memorandum and articles of the institute, specifying that the objective of the institute was to encourage the study and theory of banking, and for that purpose to institute a scheme of examinations and to give certificates, scholarships and prizes. The Indian Institute of Bankers began functioning on the 30th of April 1928 in Bombay. The membership of the institute included 24 fellows, 25 associates and 109 ordinary members. More than 650,000 members subscribe to it today. Indian Institute of Banking and Finance, IIBF's vision is to be premier institute for developing and nurturing competent professionals in the fields of banking and finance. IIBF is the only Indian institute supported directly by the banking industry that trains bank employees and people desirous of working in banks into the intricacies of the banking profession. It had a modest beginning in 1928 in a floor of the old Orient Bank building in Bombay at a monthly rent of 225 rupees. Soon afterwards, as the capital of India was moved from Calcutta to New Delhi, the institute moved into the Imperial Bank premises at Apollo Road in 1932. This was to be the institute's registered premises for a long time. But the institute was already on its way to greatness. Its first local center was opened in Calcutta in 1928 itself, and many more centers were subsequently opened in other important cities and towns.
IIBF has a checkered history of 87 years. It has started its journey much before Reserve Bank of India came into existence. The institute was set up by the bankers with the primary objective of educating people for the banking sector, because at that point in time it was thought that London Institute of Banking is not in a position to deliver and groom people for the banking sector. The quality and standard is the hallmark of the institute. We always strive to maintain that quality and standard and deliver to the best expectation of the banking industry.
But coming back to the 30s, the activities of the institute centered around three objectives. First, conducting examinations for banking personnel. Secondly, arranging lectures by eminent experts as part of the continuing education of bankers. And thirdly, dissemination of information in the field of banking by bringing out a journal. The first examination was held in Bombay and 19 other centers on the 6th of April 1929. A total of 89 candidates appeared. Who could imagine then the great heights that this first step was to lead to? Today, there are more than 3 lakh candidates appearing for its flagship courses alone across more than 250 centers. T.M. Srinivasa Raghavan was the first candidate to be entitled to the Associate Certificate of the Institute and also the first to be honored with the Sir Norman Murray Prize. The institute found its voice in its journal, which was launched in January 1930. The journal was a quarterly. Apart from publishing question papers, the journal published legal decisions, questions on banking and model answers to questions, the activities of the institute, and more such matters relevant to the banking sector. This magazine is now known as Bank Quest and is now supplemented by a special annual issue as well as a monthly newsletter called Iibf Vision. The president of the institute was the senior managing governor of the Imperial Bank of India in the initial years. In 1935, the Reserve Bank of India was established. With this, the prestige associated with the presidentship of the institute was passed on to the governor of RBI. C.D. Deshmukh became the first Indian governor of the Reserve Bank of India in 1945 and also the first Indian president of the institute. This tradition continued until 1998.
The Reserve Bank has been associated with the Iibf for long. In the initial years, the governors of the Reserve Bank used to be the president of the Iibf. So once it reached maturity, then we thought that our leadership need not necessarily be present, and it can be given in the hands of, able hands of leadership within the banking community. That way we came out of the governing board, but still there is a representation from the Reserve Bank of India on the governing council of Iibf, because we would like to continue to be in touch with the institution.
The fact that the president of the institute was the RBI governor until 1998 was a source of tremendous strength to the institute in its formative years. The support from various governors like Mr. L.K. Jha, Mr. Narasimhan, Dr. I.G. Patel, Dr. R.K. Malhotra, Dr. Manmohan Singh, Dr. Bimal Jalan and Dr. Rangarajan over the years has helped the institute to become financially viable and operationally robust.
Well, there is scope for a large number of institutions in a country like ours. But the focus of the institute should be on training employees in the banks. First of all, there is a certain amount of basic training which is needed by everyone who enters the banking industry. That training has been given by the Institute of Bankers for a very long time. That training is not being given by anybody else. It is a matter of training, not a few hundreds, but a few thousands. That training program is unique, in my opinion, to the Indian Institute of Banking and Finance.
It wasn't long before 1947 knocked on our doors. The Indian tricolour replaced the Union Jack on the Red Fort and gave the Indian citizen a new sense of purpose. Life changed in ways both subtle and obvious, and so did the banking sector. The institute was quick to react to these changes and revised its syllabus to introduce many new subjects like Practice and Law of Banking, Commercial Geography, Commercial Law, with special focus on the law of banking, and Indian Government Financial Administration and Procedure. Further changes were made in the 1960s with the introduction of certificate examinations in industrial finance and cooperation. In 1966, the frequency of examinations was increased to twice a year. By this time, a number of candidates were appearing from several centers abroad, such as Kampala, Mombasa, Nairobi, Singapore and London.
What happens is that when you become a member of an institute like this and you hold a certificate from an institute like this, it's the institute which in a sense is holding out to the public and giving some form of assurance of quality to the person to whom the certificate is issued. So it is not only necessary that he should be qualified to hold that certificate at the time when he appears for an exam, he should also be a participant in a continuing education program, because unless his skills are maintained, then the institute can't hold out that the person whom it has certified is really competent to do this.
The 2 decades following independence were the growing up years for the young nation called India. It was finding its feet and growing at a fast pace. And the banking sector perhaps grew faster than everything else between 1947 and 1968.
We had many institutes, training institutes, but then there was a gap. Training gap, you can say, education gap and all that, skilling gap. Now that scaling gap and all that, IIBF very commendably stepped into and filled up the void.
The banking sector was by now well aware of the Institute's role in preparing a well-trained and skilled workforce. Not surprisingly, most banks not only started giving financial incentives to its successful candidates, but even started giving considerable weightage to their certificate at the time of promotions. It also carried considerable social prestige. Successful bankers clearly took pride in adding CAIIB after their names.
Memory of IIBF that I have is the memory of actually appearing for those examinations. We were all very young then. When we used to appear for these examinations, we used to all get together and do group study. Again, many of us came from very diverse fields. In fact, very few of us were from commerce. While I was from arts, there were lots of people who came in from the engineering streams, from pure sciences, and none of us knew anything about accounting when we started these papers or started studying for these papers. So the memories that I have are of us, getting together after a hard day's work, sitting down, going through the books, solving the problems, pulling each other's legs about the kind of mistakes we were making, and then going in a group to appear for the examinations. And in fact, the results used to come during office hours, and we were at that point of time, I was in the Calcutta main branch, which is a huge branch, and it had a very nice lunchroom. And by the number of people who would come into the lunchroom smiling, you would know who had got the good results and who had not got the good results. So I have very fond memories of those days.
CAIIB stands for Certified Associate of the Indian Institute of Bankers. This was a two-part exam, and many of the candidates were not able to complete the second part even after clearing the first one. The institute thought that such candidates would be better placed if they could acquire a certificate from the institute. And so, the first part was also made certificate worthy in 1999 by naming it Junior Associate of the Indian Institute of Bankers, or JAIIB. This benefited thousands of candidates every year.
I had appeared for CAIIB previously 4 years ago, but at that time the portion was very vast and I could not clear it till the 4th attempt. So now I once again thought that it's good that the portion also has been changed, the syllabus has been improved, so why not appear for it once again.
I am Naz Pardiwala, working as Assistant Manager for Central Bank of India for the past 33 years. I have appeared for the CAIIB exams as it helps a person make progress in his career.
ये एग्ज़ाम हमारे प्रमोशन में तो हेल्प करता ही है, साथ साथ हमारे जो प्रैक्टिकल हमारा जॉब वर्क है उसमें भी ये नॉलेज काफ़ी काम आता है.
If you clear this exam, you can get extra weightage for this.
I want to say the frequency of exam which they are conducting in the duration of 6 months. Instead of 6 months, they should reduce it to 3 months.
But the battle had not been won yet. The journey was not yet over. The institute realized that the candidate did not have access to reliable reference books while preparing for the examination and decided to bring out a standard textbook in each of the subjects.
I believe that because of this transformation today, the institute is a very robust institute and it has got international recognition as one of the finest training and certification institutes in the world.
Today, publication has become a major activity with IIBF, with approximately 60 books published on various banking, para-banking and finance-related subjects. For almost all its courses, the institute has courseware. Such publications have ensured that the candidates taking the institute's examinations have good reference materials and has added to the literature on banking topics available in the country. Many MBA colleges are prescribing the institute's publications as reference material. In 1985, the institute commenced its own correspondence course in all the subjects of Part 1 and Part 2 of the associate examination.
A big change came in 1969 when bank nationalization took place, and there was a wide recruitment in the banking sector. A lot of people joined in the banking sector. So Institute had to play its role to develop people for the banking sector. Another big change in 1990s, when big time reform were put into place, many private sector banks came into the fray. Competition was there. They came with a lot of products and services. So Institute had to introduce many specialized courses to meet the need of the banking industry at that point in time.
But progress is an unending process. In 1978, a review committee recommended that the Institute should introduce a diploma in bank management examination instead of the existing certificate. It also recommended that the Institute should gradually expand its activities and develop into a teaching body. Accordingly, the Institute introduced its first diploma course, a diploma in bank management. The Institute completed 60 years of service to the banking industry in 1988, and a host of events were organized to commemorate the Diamond Jubilee.
I joined in 1984. It was having hardly, 2.2 crore gross revenue, only about 14 lakhs rupees surplus, and 4 crore net worth. That was the stage when I joined. And today, if you see, the total gross revenue of the institute is 78 crores, surplus is about 21 crore, and the total assets are more than 300 crores. So this is the kind of expansion the institute has envisaged so far.
The Chartered Institute of Bankers had been conducting a banking summer school, IBSS, since 1948. India hosted it for the first time at New Delhi in 1988. 184 executives of banks and financial institutions representing 48 countries and 3 international organizations participated in the school. The institute acquitted itself remarkably well. Rich compliments were paid to the institute for its efficiency and imagination in holding this event. The IBSS was again held in India in 2009. The institute has also been regularly hosting and participating in international events in order to keep in touch with worldwide banking trends. During the 41st International Banking Summer School hosted by the institute in India, it was observed that the problems encountered by developing countries were inadequately focused upon. The institute therefore hosted the first Afro-Asian Banking School at Bangalore in 1990. It also hosted the 10th World Conference of Banking Institutes in 1992 at Goa and the Conference of Asian Pacific Association of Banking Institutes in 2014 and 2015 at Mumbai and Delhi respectively.
It's a matter of great pride to the institute that the institute is now referred to as almost the International Institute of Bankers. This transformation has been welcomed by the banks across the country and even from outside. Today the institute is having collaboration arrangements with reputed institutions across Asian and African countries.
The institute also offers consultancies to overseas institutes in customization of examinations, moderation of questions and answer papers for banking institutes in Sri Lanka, Zambia, Nepal, Botswana, Malaysia, Bangladesh and a few other countries.
The Indian Institute of Banking and Finance has really customized this training program for our institute, which is a great help on their part because as far as I know that majority of the other training institute, they prefer their pre-designed training courses, but they have done a fantastic job by preparing a customized training program as per our need.
When the Government of India introduced computerization in government offices during the late 1980s, the institute recognized the need of the time and stood right there in the front row to implement the initiative. It computerized its membership and examination records, which enabled it to move its exams online in 2005. The format was also changed to objective type from the descriptive type. The institute acquired additional office premises at measuring about 6,200 square feet at Cuff Parade, Bombay in 1990. The new library of the institute was located at these premises. The next year was 1991, when the Government of India announced a wide range of economic reforms, and consequently, the period 1992 to 1997 witnessed far-reaching reforms in the banking system. Not long after, e-commerce added a new dimension to the business of banking. Customers were becoming more demanding than ever for quick services and delivery systems, and with increased competition from new banks, both Indian and foreign, it was necessary for established banks, especially public sector banks, to become technologically enabled at the earliest.
Iibf and the name a legend sort of connects very well. And when you say something is a legend, there are two things come to mind. One is the fact that it is timeless. Second is it reinvents itself continuously. And when I look at today's needs of young bankers and developing the banking industry, the play of technology is formidable. We know that it is changing lives. So the ability of Iibf to reinvent itself and bring technology into the learning space is quite commendable. And I think as people who want to associate with Iibf and learn, the virtual classrooms, the ability to learn online, the facilities that are brought in applying technology is really commendable.
The Indian Institute of Bankers reacted quickly once again by identifying the needs of banking education and training and redesigned its programs and activities in the context of those needs. Among the reforms introduced was a new course on financial advising.
Given the country as a whole, which comprises of almost 6,60,000 villages, it's impossible for the banks to reach every nook and corner through a brick and mortar branch, and thus the financial inclusion is the only way using the business correspondent model to reach them. Thus Iibf has contributed extensively towards this activity. I am glad about it.
The institute also introduced CD-based tutorials, an interactive information portal, and an e-newsletter called Fin@Quest. It also commenced the work of integrating technology to the services to provide better value to its members. The institute has all its activities online, be it membership, registration for examinations, conducting of the actual examination, or anything else.
It's in fact a very proud moment for us. Because we are completely online, it has been possible to give a very high quality education at a very affordable prices.
The institute also provides e-learning and pre-recorded video lectures for its flagship courses to help candidates to understand the concept and pass the examinations with the requisite marks. Another major development occurred in the history of the institute at the close of the century. A need was felt to decentralize its activities and to serve members at their doorstep. On the one hand, 4 zonal centers of the institute were opened in the 4 metros of Kolkata, Chennai, New Delhi and Mumbai in 1999. Today, the institute is managed by several committees like the Executive Committee, the Examination Committee, the Education and Training Committee, the Research Advisory Committee, the Information Technology Committee, etc. The frequent revisions in the institute's syllabus and expansions in its activities had extended its scope beyond the confines of banking into the wider world of finance by the advent of the new millennium. It was therefore renamed as Indian Institute of Banking and Finance in 2003. It also introduced a diploma in Banking and Finance, or DB&F, in 2002-2003. In 2004, the institute signed a collaboration agreement with the Commercial Bank of Ceylon Limited to provide a customized scheme of examinations for the benefit of Sri Lankan bankers. The institute shifted to its new premises at Kohinoor City, Kurla, which was inaugurated by His Excellency, Governor of Maharashtra, Shri K. Shankaranarayanan, on the 11th of May 2011. These premises enabled the institute to open a leadership center where it could conduct its own tutorials rather than having to depend on business schools. The center also offers weekend courses for banking professionals where advanced management programs are offered.
We have to see that the examinations are increased and new examinations, new courses are developed.
Iibf has worked out collaborations for providing various banking-related educational services with various eminent institutes in India and across the globe, namely Indira Gandhi National Open University, Financial Planning Standard Board of India, Banking Codes and Standards Board of India, Zambia Institute of Banking and Financial Services, National Banking Training Institute, Nepal, the Chartered Institute of Bankers, and Alliance of African Institute of Bankers, etc.
A number of challenges are there in front of the banking industry. Number of regulatory changes are being made. A lot of money is being spent on compliance to regulatory changes. But most important thing for any institution, especially for banking, is training, and where Iibf has been playing a very crucial role. And I wish Iibf continues with the same zeal and vigor with which they are functioning.
During its Diamond Jubilee year in 1988, the Institute introduced an Overseas Research Fellowship titled as Diamond Jubilee Overseas Banking Research Fellowship, with the intention to encourage research in the banking field. This was merged in 2007-2008 with the C.H. Bhabha Fellowship offered by the Indian Banks Association and came to be known as the Diamond Jubilee and C.H. Bhabha Banking Overseas Research Fellowship. This fellowship was offered to undertake research study on the latest developments in banking in any country in the world except the neighboring countries.
I'm supposed to take a research in a topic which is relevant to the contemporary banking, and then there is a small leg of foreign. As a body, I can go to other country, I can learn the best practices, and then I will give a small report based upon the report what Indian banks can learn from other countries.
Macro research proposals are also invited by the Institute every year, wherein it awards 2.5 lakhs per project for a study to be carried out within 4 to 6 months. The Institute has so far published 31 research reports in 5 volumes. Copies of these published reports are provided to banks, financial institutions, and academic bodies for wider dissemination of the research findings. The Institute's micro-research activity is an essay competition for the members of the Institute to present their original ideas, thoughts, and best practices suggestions on areas of their interest. The winning essays are identified and approved by the Institute's Research Advisory Committee. Each prize winner is given a cash award and a certificate. The Institute also organizes 2 important lectures every year. Sir Purushottam Das Thakurdas Memorial Lecture is an annual event designed to perpetuate the memory of one of the founders of the Institute. The R.K. Talwar Lecture is sponsored by the State Bank of India in the memory of one of its most eminent past chairmen. This year, this was delivered by the Deputy Chairman of Niti Aayog, Dr. Arvind Panagriya. Nearly 50 prizes are awarded by the Institute today in various categories like the highest aggregate marks, the best male student, the best female student, etc. Certificates are given to all candidates who have passed the Institute's examinations. The Institute is even contemplating making its certificates available online.
It has given me pride, confidence.
It builds up confidence for the counter staff.
To enhance my knowledge.
In banking industry, CAIB certification is a very big thing.
This knowledge, acquired knowledge, can be utilized for the better growth of banking.
I feel obliged to do better.
All feels great. It's just great.
The Institute has won innumerable awards for academic input, service deliveries, etc. within the country as well as abroad. These awards are an endorsement of robust systems and academic excellence of the Institute. The Institute has stepped into the social media space with a YouTube channel and Facebook pages so as to reach out to its members and others, and making its courses relevant and up-to-date in banking and finance. The institute plans to develop a mobile app to enable candidates, members and others to access information about the IIBF, its courses and examinations in a convenient way. The institute is also gearing up to offer its e-learning through mobiles, tabs, etc. The institute also plans to make its publications available as e-books to make the material ready for reading at any time to the members. And difficult to believe as it is, all this is managed with a total workforce of less than 100 people. And the secret behind this is simple. IIBF is extremely tech-savvy and makes optimum use of computers and other technology to achieve its goals.
Staff members, present and past, had worked tirelessly for the development of the institute. I acknowledge their contribution for the development and salute the endeavor they had taken in different stages of development of this institute.
The Indian Institute of Banking and Finance looks forward to playing a much more creative and professional role in the banking sector and is ready with all its might, expertise and commitment to meet new challenges.